Greetings, all, and welcome to another episode of Tachyon Transmissions, the podcast about all things Star Trek, science fiction, and horror. I am joined by my co-host, Jordan Morris, and I'm, of course, your other co-host, Byron Lafayette. And we are continuing our epic trek through Season 3 of Strange New Worlds. Thank you so much for coming along this journey with us, and thank you all for listening, that you have made this this podcast a success. And we really appreciate all the likes and listens that you've been giving us, because at the end of the day, what we enjoy, being two guys talking about Star Trek, having a bunch of you listening along and chatting with us just makes it all the more enjoyable. So thank you again from the bottom of our heart. And, this week we are going to be talking about Season 3, Episode 8, which is 4.5 Vulcans. This was Strange New Worlds dive back into comedy. And because I want to say this was pretty much a full-on comedic episode for the most part. But as always, we got some tantalizing lore elements that were thrown in there, some interesting character moments, and some things, of course, that we'll talk about that we weren't huge fans of. So do you want to get us started, Jordan? What were your overall thoughts on this episode?
So I thought this episode was a step in the right direction after the last couple, which I don't think either one of us enjoyed as much as we would have liked to. Definitely a full-on humor episode, like you said. Seeing Pike and Nurse Chapel and Uhura and La'an as Vulcans, it just was funny. Like they said, just like you said, full-on comedic take. Pike, somehow his hair is higher than Mount Slea, which I don't quite know how that works, but it is what it is. La'an basically turns into like a full-on like psycho, or basically goes full Romulan on us, which we'll come back to later. Uhura was, I don't know, very pragmatic, but like, yeah, Ortegas's brother Beto is not really. She takes offense to him not planning a date, so she just basically gives him a mind meld and telepathically suggests that he does what she tells him, and he does.
He literally becomes like the perfect boyfriend, basically.
The ultimate simp here, apparently.
Yes.
But and then Chapel just apparently becomes a complete workaholic, and she's like, I've decided to end all friendships. I don't have time for this.
Yeah, she has like at one point, was it like 7 science experiments going at once or something?
Yeah, and it's like, oh, this one's just a side project. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
And then having Patton Oswalt as Doug the Vulcan, which I was like, Doug the Vulcan, but it worked. And we had talked about it before we started, but I don't think anyone other than Patton Oswalt could have pulled it off. The whole just, he's a Vulcan who wants to be human, which is an oxymoron if I've ever heard one. And then he has the whole, for those of you, if you haven't watched or you missed it, there actually is an after credit scene where it's just Spock and Patton Oswalt discussing humans and Vulcans, and it's glorious.
That in credit scene was so much fun. Just like it was so funny. And like I swear at the end when Spock cracks that smile that was Ethan Peck like breaking his composure and laughing. I'm convinced of it.
Oh yeah, I could easily see that.
Because it was just like, just going through all this different stuff of like, high-fiving, was just, it was so funny.
You are, in fact, too slow. Why would you do that?
And Patton Oswalt, he pulls off, it's so funny because, like you said, he's an oxymoron of a Vulcan, but he also pulls off the deadpan Vulcan so well.
Yes.
Because you would think that he was going to just go crazy being this kind of weird Vulcan, but he actually is a perfectly straight-laced Vulcan. And it's just like, he's so funny with how he talks, how he asks questions is just so funny. And it's just like they add in another interesting like wrinkle to his character, which is funny, of that he, you know, he is the ex of number one, and that they are literally obsessed with each other, which just is so funny, you know.
So you've got like 5'3" Patton Oswalt, who's just your average regular dude, and number one, Rebecca Romaine, who is a supermodel who is just completely obsessed with him and just is barely able to keep herself off of him. And it's just like, and she's like, this is Spock. We're married. And Spock's like, I'm sorry. What?
And it's like then they keep having more and more children as like she's trying to like, you know, to disconnect herself from Doug, and it's
failing
just
epically.
Oh, it is so funny just as it continues on, you know. And I think like as we've and one other thing too was, you know, we had talked about like why in a previous episode why he was going to be called Doug. And I love that they ended up going with the exact thing that we predicted, which is basically that his parents were obsessed with humans as well. And so all of their children had basic human names.
Yeah, that was a really funny like tidbit they threw in there.
Mhm.
That was very clever. It was a fresh take. I like that.
Yeah. Perhaps you have met my brother, you know, Pete. And I don't know if you have seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or not.
Yes, where he's all the brothers.
Yes, and so like I absolutely want that to happen now, where he is also, you know, Vulcan Pete, and
then he needs to play the sister too.
Absolutely, he needs
it's
to
just
play
Patton
the sister.
Oswalt done up as a girl. Yes, a female Vulcan. Yes,
I completely agree. This needs to be something that happens over the course of the next few seasons, that we just keep meeting them. I absolutely agree. So you know, so it was definitely done well, I think, with his character. You know, as you said, I loved Pike's peak. You know, his hair just getting even more out of control was just glorious. And I also thought it was funny too of that the serum that they give them to turn them into Vulcans does not work on Pelia.
and the LSD joke going back to Star Trek IV was great as well.
That was really great. Yes. And I love just how like bitter and angry she was that it didn't affect her when she's watching them just go through the agonizing emotions. And she's like, that just looks so much fun. You know, it's like, oh, yeah. Pelia just continues to just be a standout on this show. And I'm glad that they're finding ways to involve her in the various episodes. But, you know, how did you feel about the individual, like, I guess, character traits that they gave them as Vulcans? They're like kind of mini stories. Like, did you think it was done well with these four characters, or what, or did you think it could have been done better? What did you think?
I liked what they did. As we've said with most of the episodes this season, if we had another 15 minutes, you know, we only got like 2 brief scenes with Uhura and Ortegas, and Beto. La'an was a full-on psychopath. They could have fleshed that out a little bit. I will say the interaction between Vulcan Pike and Vulcan La'an, where they both, you know, Pike knows that the Romulans are offshoots of Vulcans because of the end of season 1, where he jumps to the alternate future, where he's still captain of the Enterprise. There was some chatter online. People were like, well, how does La'an know? La'an knows from when she and alternate reality Kurt jumped back in time and she saved Khan. It doesn't explicitly state it in the episode, but I think if the Romulans and Earth had been at war, they would have figured out, and Kirk just told her. It's my headcanon for it. It's not that big of a leap, you know? So I wouldn't consider that.
Agree with you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so sorry, random tangent. But I would have liked a little bit more. It was a little too. I thought everything resolved a little too quickly. I would have liked to have seen each of the 4 new Vulcans get a little bit more. I did enjoy Pike's interaction with. He was driving Captain Batel mad, and now his meticulous cleaning, his cooking, bringing Vice Admiral Pasalk back from the Judge Advocate General's office was a nice touch. And then now that it looks like Beto is going to succeed him in his position, that's like, of course, I wonder if that's foreshadowing, like we've talked about before. Oh, it's looking great for Beto, and then they're going to kill her, or something's going to happen. But that was a nice progression of another storyline that's been ongoing this season. Like I said, this was definitely an improvement from, because we did not enjoy the documentary one as much as we'd have liked. This was better. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step in the right direction, I thought.
I absolutely agree with you. Like, I was very uneasy going into it just because of those last few episodes that have, not been good. But yeah, I think overall, this was a win, for the season. Like you said, it's been a continuing issue with season 3 of the episodes just not being long enough, especially this particular episode, that at the end, it was just suddenly like, oh, we figured out how to cure them. And then suddenly the next scene, they're all cured. And it was like, I would have liked to have seen a little bit more, of them, figuring it out, or maybe like we saw with Leon, like how Spock had to kind of go into her, like, mind basically in order to cure her. Like, I would have liked to have seen that maybe with a few of the others. Like, we didn't necessarily need to see all 4 of them being cured in their head spaces, but like, it would have been interesting to see at least a couple more of that, in my opinion. I think possibly a way that they could have maybe, made this episode maybe a little bit tighter, in the sense of, if they didn't want to extend it a little bit, was maybe not had 4 of them turn into Vulcans. Maybe it was just 2 of them, and that could have maybe allowed more time to flesh out some of the characters, maybe, who knows. But yeah, overall, it was a step in the right direction. Just a couple of those lingering flaws that they've been having this whole season with the writing process, which is unfortunate. But let's talk a little bit about Leon, because I think Leon had one of some of the more interesting, like, lore tidbits, I think, kind of thrown in there, and some possible foreshadowing, maybe, and I don't know, just her storyline I felt was very interesting. What did you think about it?
Oh yeah, she goes a full on off the deep end, but it's like, yeah, it's very plausible. I mean, she goes basically full Romulan. It almost accentuated her augment DNA and, superior. How does it? Superior intellect breeds superior ambition. Like they used to talk about the augments. I like Paul Wesley's Kirk. I do sort of feel like he was shoehorned in here a little bit. Not that I dislike having him, but I sent you that there's a really funny meme floating around on Facebook. It's basically Pike and Kirk drawn up as like one of the old 80s Star Trek books. And the tagline is, once again, Kirk shows up in the Enterprise, and Pike has to ask, "What are you doing on my ship?" is like the book title. That was a common complaint I was reading about online, which I really enjoy Paul Wesley's Kirk. A bit shoehorned in here, but it was really nice to see him and Scotty play off of each other and develop that relationship. But La'an just going, I mean, you talk full on psycho. I mean, the Romulans could learn a few things from her. And like you said, is this foreshadowing a dark turn for her? It could be. I don't know.
It's definitely interesting. Yeah. Because, like, when she first started showing the dark tendencies in this episode, immediately my thought was like, oh, she's going Romulan. She's not going Vulcan. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. But then I found it really interesting when Spock goes into her headspace. I can't remember what they exactly call it. Was it Mindscape? I can't remember what they call it in the episode. And it was fascinating when he mentions that the Romulan, shift had mixed with what he called her dark core, which I thought was really fascinating. And he brings up the augment DNA that is in her from Khan. And, and so I thought that was interesting because I thought, well, they could have just gone the Romulan route, that they could have just said, hey, she went Romulan instead of Vulcan. But they did bring up, that dark core that she has in her. And then previously, earlier in the series, we have heard that she still has, I don't know what you would call it, but like she has augments that were not, that were passed down basically from her family, that are still in her. And then we'll talk about later, there's some other elements that have popped up a little bit in the next episode too with her. And then we also kind of had her taking a bit more of a dark turn in the musical episode, her song lyrics, that I don't know, it's interesting that it makes me wonder, like, are they kind of building her up? Is she going to be a villain in one of the later seasons? I'm not sure. So it's fascinating to kind of think of the possibilities.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. She continues to be, I think, one of the more interesting characters that they created for this show. But kind of going off a little bit on what you said also about Paul Wesley's Kirk, again, really enjoy his take on the character, and I think he's really been growing nicely into Kirk. It's been a little baffling to me, I think, a bit, the way they have used him this season, though. Like you said, he's felt a little shoehorned in with some of these episodes, and like it's been strange to me because we've seen him kind of put into these episodes where he doesn't really feel like he fits, but then excluded from episodes where he would have fit perfectly. Like I feel like through the lens of time, he would have fit perfectly, in that particular episode. And even like, I don't know, like some of the other episodes too, I can't remember exactly which ones, I feel like he would have fit. And I don't know why they put him in the episodes that they have.
Yeah, he would have probably done well. It's like the Farragut was a joint mission between Enterprise and Farragut, and through the lens of time. It's just been, I don't know, just very lazy writing, I think, honestly, is probably the biggest issue there. But I'm sure he has a certain number of appearances they're contractually obligated to give him, so is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely haven't disliked any of his appearances, just because, like I said, I enjoy his character. So now, as far as we know, was this the last appearance of him this season, or do we know if he's going to show up in the finale?
I have no idea.
Okay, so that'll be something to watch out for, because I don't think there was an official he's in this many episodes a season. I think the rumor was that he was in 3, so if that's the case, this would be his last appearance, but we don't actually know for sure. So so yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. But yeah, so I think kind of as we near the end of the discussion for this particular episode, what would you say were this, I guess, what would you say, what were your favorite wins of this episode and your favorite losses? So your favorite W's, your favorite L's.
Oh, good question. Excuse me. Patton Oswalt's definitely probably one of the favorite wins, if not the favorite. Just having him out playing off of them, you could clearly tell he's having fun and everyone's enjoying having him around. Just the reactions you get out of number 1, that's honestly probably the funniest part of the episode. Biggest favorite, the losses, just not getting as much of a fleshed out story, especially Uhura's Vulcan time really seemed to be skimped out on, of all of them. Yeah, I think that's what I'm going to go with. What about yourself?
Yeah, I think those are good picks. Yeah, I would say definitely for my W's, Vulcan Doug was definitely right up there, and his interactions with Una, I think were perfect. They just were done so well. I also enjoyed I enjoyed the sequence too with Leon, with her and Spock. I think was just a really nice sequence. I enjoyed the kind of transition that they had of when her and Spock are fighting. Like, I always enjoy Vulcan martial arts is always just really fun to watch, I think. So I enjoyed that, and kind of how it transitioned from that to the dance, I think was really interesting, of kind of showing her brain kind of turning from that Romulan con back to the relationship she had with Kirk. I think was pretty well done. So I enjoyed that particular sequence. And of course the dinner scene, I think, with the Admiral, Pike, and Beto was pretty fun. For the L's, I would agree with you. The runtime of the episode was a problem. I think a little bit longer would have been good. And I think Nurse Chapel and Uhura just not getting that much fleshed out storylines as Vulcans was kind of a problem, because in some ways they just kind of almost made them kind of both kind of just toxic, I guess, in a way, because we got more fleshed out with Leon and Pike, but then it was just kind of like, I don't know, Chapel and Uhura just kind of became the worst versions of themselves a little bit as Vulcans, which was kind of, I don't know, like, I didn't have a problem with that necessarily, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more maybe of some of the more positive sides of what they were. Just because, Nurse Chapel just continues to be, the worst character this season. And I think her as a Vulcan just continued to show that.
It was nice to see Corby get his comeuppance, though. Not gonna lie.
God. I am so glad that you brought that up. That was hilarious. The breakup with him. I was almost cheering, because I was like, okay, I really enjoyed seeing that. Oh, so yeah, so I would say those are my W's and L's. So our favorite point of the episode has now come. How would you rank this episode on a 1 to 10 stars?
Oh, good question. This one is definitely an improvement in one of the better episodes this season. Is it one of the standout episodes of the entire series? No. I'm gonna go probably around a 7. Maybe if I was feeling generous, a 7.5, but this show has hit such high highs. If I put it like an 8, it feels like I'm insulting some of the really good episodes, so I'm gonna go with 7.
Sounds good. Yeah, it's definitely difficult, because I agree with you. I think this was one of the better episodes, definitely, this season. It was a breath of fresh air after definitely some episodes that were a bit more of duds. But like you said, there were still some issues there. So I think I'm going to go along with you and give it a 7. I think, because I think if it was a little bit more tightly written, I think it could have gotten to a 7.5 easily, because, some of the elements of this episode, kind of the more you think about it, the more it falls apart, is, of like them becoming Vulcan, and some of their abilities as Vulcan doesn't really make sense when you like kind of put it up to logic. But on the other hand, this is a comedy episode, so I kind of give it a little bit more of a pass on some of the of having a suspension of disbelief. I kind of allow it, because when you're a comedic episode, the comedy is number one, so you don't necessarily have to some things can be hand waved away a little bit more. So yeah, I think a 7 is a fair score. And and the sad thing is I think some of these episodes this particular season would actually probably be rated higher if seasons 1 and 2 didn't exist.
Agreed. Like in this one, even like if we had even gotten a brief cut to the planet when they're on the away mission, why they're Vulcans in the first place, which they had to, because of it was a Vulcan planet that doesn't know other aliens exist. It's not a Vulcan planet. It's a planet that had made contact with Vulcans before the Federation. But like we don't see any of that mission. So, showing Spock getting like basically given grief because he's only half Vulcan would have added a lot to it, and we don't get any of that.
I absolutely agree, because I'm looking here, because the runtime was 55 minutes, and I feel like like you said, maybe an extra 15 minutes onto that, maybe made it an hour and 10. we could have gotten maybe, an extra, 5 to 10 minutes of that away mission in the beginning, and then maybe an extra 5 to 10 minutes, of the conclusion of them, fixing them or something. And I think if that would have been the case, I think this episode would have been a lot better, I think.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm. So, well, everybody, thank you for joining us for this particular episode as we reviewed and discussed 4.5 Vulcans. The 8th episode of season 3 of Strange New Worlds. Definitely appreciate you guys joining us, and as always, we're curious to hear what you thought about this episode. Did you think this was one of the best of the season? Did you think it was one of the best of the entire show? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Let us know. And definitely join us for next week, because we're going to be talking about, as always, our next episode as we continue our journey with Strange New Worlds. So don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast so that you never miss an episode, because even though we are nearing the end of our journey with Strange New Worlds, we have a lot more content that's going to be coming up in the near future, that will be science fiction related, horror related, and the Star Trek news, and other shows. So you won't want to miss it. It's going to be a lot of fun. So again, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.